This is the story of a school field trip I'll never forget. I'm going to tell you everything that happened, just like it was told to me. And trust me, once you hear it, you won't think of field trips the same way again. It was fall. The yatati leaves had turned orange and red, and the air had that crisp chill that makes you want to wear your hoodie everywhere. Our school had planned a weekend field trip to a nature center about 3 hours from town. It was one of those learning, in the wild trips, hiking, nature lessons, campfires, that kind of thing. Everyone was excited. It was a break from classes, a chance to hang out with friends and no homework. We left on a Friday morning in 2 big yellow school buses. I was in 10th grade back then, and I remember sitting with my friend Tyler near the back of the bus. We had snacks, our phones, and headphones. We weren't thinking about anything scary, just fun. The place we were going to was called Hollow Creek Nature Center. It used to be a summer camp, but it shut down years ago and was now used for school groups. When we arrived, the place looked normal. A bit old, yeah, but nothing creepy. There were cabins, a dining hall, trails through the woods, and even a small lake. We were split into groups and assigned cabins. I ended up in cabin 6 with Tyler, a kid named Marcus, and another guy named Jay. We picked our bunks, threw our bags down, and joined the others at the main hall, where the trip leader, Mr. Brennan, told us the rules. No wandering off the trails. Stay in your groups. Lights out at 10. And remember, this place is safe, but wild animals don't like loud kids, so behave. Everyone laughed. That night, we had a campfire. S'mores, stories, dumb jokes, typical stuff. But then one of the counselors, a guy named Pete, told a story that made things weird. He said, "This place used to be Camp Hollow Creek. It closed in the 90s. Rumor is, a girl went missing here. Some say she drowned in the lake. Others say she ran off into the woods and was never found. They searched for days. Dogs, helicopters, everything. But nothing. Some people even claim to hear her crying in the forest at night, calling for help." He paused and smiled like it was a joke. "Anyway, sweet dreams, kids." We all laughed nervously, but inside, something didn't feel right. That story stuck in my head. Later that night, after lights out, Marcus said he needed to pee and didn't want to go alone. So I went with him. We had to walk a little way to the bathhouse. The forest was dark, and even with our flashlights, everything looked creepy. Branches looked like hands. The wind sounded like whispers. While waiting for Marcus, I heard something. A soft voice. It was faint, but I swear it said, "Help me." I turned quickly. The forest was quiet again. I thought maybe I imagined it. But then Marcus came out and said, "Did you hear that?" I nodded. "A voice?" "Yeah," he said. "A girl's voice." We walked back fast. We didn't tell anyone because it felt stupid. Like maybe we just spooked ourselves with that story. But the next day, something really strange happened. During a hike, Jay wandered a bit off the path to take a shortcut back to the cabins. Mr. Brennan got mad, of course, and made him stay behind with a counselor to think about his choices. An hour later, when we got back, Jay wasn't there. The counselor said, "He was right behind me. I turned for 1 second and he was gone." Search teams went out. They combed the area. Teachers called his name again and again. We waited in the main hall. Time passed. The sun started going down. Still no Jay. That night, nobody slept well. Everyone was scared, and the teachers told us to stay in our cabins. But then, around midnight, we heard knocking. Soft, slow knocks on the cabin. Sure, we thought it was Jay. Tyler got up, went to the door, and opened it. No one was there, just the cold night air and the sound of the wind moving through the trees. Tyler closed the door fast and locked it. "I swear someone was standing there," he whispered. The next morning, Jay was still missing. The school called the police, and by afternoon, parents were arriving to pick us up early. But before I left, something happened that I still don't like to think about. I went to the lake just for a minute. I wanted a quiet moment. Everyone else was at the buses. As I stood there, I saw something in the water. At first, I thought it was a log, but then it moved. A pale face rose just above the surface, eyes open, staring right at me. I couldn't move. I was frozen. Then it sank back under, vanishing without a ripple. I ran. I didn't tell anyone. Not then. I couldn't even process it. Jay was never found. They searched for days. Nothing. The trip was never spoken about again at school. It was like everyone decided to pretend it didn't happen. But here's the part that still chills me. 3 weeks later, I got a message on Instagram. No profile picture, no followers, just one message. "You heard me." I blocked the account instantly. I've never gone camping since, never gone near a lake. And whenever I hear wind moving through the trees, I remember that night. The voice, the pale face in the water. So if you ever go on a field trip like that, and someone tells you an old campfire story about a missing girl, don't laugh it off. Don't wander away from the group. And if you hear a voice calling from the woods, no matter how soft, no matter how sad, don't answer. Because some things, once they find you, don't ever let go. This is the story of a field trip that was supposed to be fun. Something to remember with smiles and jokes later on. But what actually happened, none of us will ever forget. Not for the reasons we wanted. It started with a school trip to Pine Ridge Forest. Our high school in Michigan planned it every year for the 11th graders. Nature walks, group activities, and one night of camping. Simple stuff. I went with my best friends, Ethan, Olivia, and Michael. We were all excited. It felt like a break from real life, away from homework and school drama. We got there around noon on a Friday. The place was beautiful. Tall trees, fresh air, and a big old ranger's cabin where we would check in. There was also a fire pit, wooden benches, and some old hiking trails marked with signs. Everything looked fine, just peaceful. The teachers gave us a quick tour, then split us into groups. We were told we'd be camping in small tents 2 miles deep into the woods, near something called Mirror Lake. The name sounded cool. I didn't know then that it would haunt me. We packed our bags and started walking to the lake with our group leader, Ms. Carter. She was young, friendly, always smiling. The walk took about 45 minutes. It was easy at first, but the deeper we got, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no wind, just footsteps and breathing. When we reached the lake, it was almost too perfect. The water was still, like glass. You could see the reflection of the trees and sky so clearly that it looked like a second world beneath the surface. It gave me chills, but I didn't say anything. We set up our tents. Mine was next to Ethan's. Olivia and Michael were just across from us. As the sun set, we made a campfire and roasted marshmallows. Everyone laughed and told dumb stories, but I noticed something strange. Ms. Carter kept looking at the lake, like she was waiting for something. When someone asked her if there were fish in the lake, she said, "No, nothing lives in Mirror Lake." That was weird, but we let it go. Later that night, around 11 p.m., We all went into our tents. I remember lying in my sleeping bag, trying to fall asleep, but something felt off. I could hear water, moving. Not waves, just a soft, slow ripple, like something had slipped into the lake. Then I heard a whisper. At first I thought it was Olivia, or someone messing around, but it wasn't loud. It was soft, right next to my tent. "Come look." I held my breath. It didn't sound like anyone I knew. It was a woman's voice, gentle but strange, like someone speaking underwater. I sat up slowly and looked at Ethan. He was asleep. I decided not to unzip the tent, but then I heard the zipper, not mine, someone else's tent, being opened, quietly. Then footsteps. I peeked outside and saw Michael. He was walking toward the lake barefoot like he was sleepwalking. "Michael?" I whispered. He didn't turn around. I got up and followed him. I was scared, but I couldn't let him go into the water alone. "Michael, stop. What are you doing?" He kept walking. I reached him right at the edge of the lake and grabbed his arm. He stopped. His eyes were open, but he wasn't really there. "She's calling me," he whispered. "Who?" He blinked, like he had just woken up. He looked down at his bare feet, and then at the lake. What am I doing?" he asked. We both looked at the water. There was a woman standing in it. Only her head and shoulders were above the surface. Her skin was pale. Her hair floated around her like seaweed. Her eyes were dark, no whites at all. She didn't move, just stared at us. Then she smiled. I pulled Michael back, and we ran. We didn't stop until we got back to camp. We told Ms. Carter everything, and that's when she stopped smiling. She looked at the lake and said quietly, "I was hoping it wouldn't happen again this year." "What do you mean again?" Olivia asked. Ms. Carter took a deep breath and told us the truth. 5 years ago, a group of students went missing on this same trip. No one ever found them. No bodies. No evidence. Just gone. The only thing the search team found was a journal, left behind in a wet tent. The last entry said, "She's beautiful. She lives in the mirror." They called off all trips to the lake after that, but last year someone decided to try again. Nothing happened, so they planned another one, and this time, she came back, Ms. Carter said. "We were told to stay close, not leave our tents, and absolutely stay away from the lake." A few students didn't believe us. They thought it was just a story to keep us from sneaking off. But that night, 2 more people went missing. Their tents were open, sleeping bags empty. No one saw or heard anything. We searched for hours with flashlights, yelling their names. And then we saw it. Out in the middle of the lake, something floated. It was one of their backpacks, just sitting on the water like it was placed there. When the teachers tried to use a boat to reach it, the boat flipped over halfway there. No one was hurt, but they said it felt like something hit it from underneath. We were pulled out of the forest early the next morning. Buses came while it was still dark. Teachers looked pale and shaken. No one smiled. No one talked. When we got back to school, police questioned us one by one. They searched the area for a week. No bodies, no signs, just the backpack and water samples from the lake that showed something disturbing. There were traces of human hair deep in the mud at the bottom, multiple types. They never took students to Pine Ridge again, and I never saw Michael after that year. His family moved away. He wouldn't talk about what happened. As for me, sometimes I dream about that lake. In the dream, I'm standing at the edge again. The water is still, quiet, Then I see her face, smiling, whispering, "Come look." And every time I wake up, I feel like I left a piece of myself behind, floating in that silent, haunted place called Mirror Lake. This is the story of a field trip I went on when I was 16. A trip that started like any other fun school day, but ended in a way that still keeps me up some nights. I don't talk about it much anymore. Most people wouldn't believe me anyway. But if you're listening, really listening, I'll tell you what happened. It was the fall of my junior year. Our school, Westbrook High, planned a field trip to an old Civil War battlefield called Ravens Hollow. It was about 2 hours away from our town. I remember that morning. Everyone was excited. We were laughing, messing around on the bus. Me, my best friend Charlie, and this girl I had a crush on. Her name was Emma. She sat across the aisle from me, taking pictures out the window. Ravens Hollow wasn't like a museum or anything. It was a large open field with some trees. Old signs and broken stone fences. No buildings, just nature and a lot of silence. There were stories about the place, of course. People said it was haunted by soldiers who died in a brutal surprise attack during the war. But we didn't care. We were teenagers. We thought ghosts were just stories to scare kids. Our history teacher, Mr. Kessler, gave us a short speech about the site. Told us to stay in groups and not wander too far. Then he let us explore for a while. We had worksheets to fill out, but most of us didn't bother. We just walked around, goofing off, trying to find something creepy or cool. That's when Charlie found the path. It wasn't on the map we were given. It was hidden behind some thick bushes and fallen branches. But there was an old wooden sign, half buried in the dirt, that said, "Private, do not enter." Of course, Charlie thought that meant we had to go in. He waved me over and whispered, "Come on, let's check it out. Bring Emma." Against my better judgment, I said yes. Me, Charlie, Emma, and this other guy named Tyler snuck down the path while no one was looking. It was narrow and overgrown, like no one had walked it in years. The deeper we went, the colder the air got. I swear, it was at least 10 degrees cooler than the main field. After walking for maybe 10 minutes, we came across something strange, a clearing with an old stone well in the center. It didn't look like part of the battlefield. No signs, no fences, just that broken well and dead leaves scattered around it. "Whoa," Charlie said. "This is awesome." Emma took out her phone to take a picture. As soon as she snapped the photo, her phone screen flickered and went black. "What the?" she said. "It just died. It was at 85%. We all tried our phones. None of them worked. Not even Tyler's. And he always bragged about his phone never losing signal. Then we heard something. At first it was just a rustling sound, like something moving through the leaves behind us. We turned around. No one was there. Then a low groan. Not animal, not wind. Just wrong. Charlie laughed nervously. Okay, maybe this place is haunted." But none of us laughed with him. Then Tyler walked up to the well. "Bet there's something cool in there," he said, and leaned over the edge. "Don't," Emma said quickly. "Come on, Tyler." He didn't listen. He picked up a small rock and dropped it down the well. We all waited to hear it hit the bottom. We never did. Instead, we heard something else. A whisper. Soft. Slow. It came from the well, from deep inside. At first it sounded like crying, then like someone saying a name. "Emma." She froze. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Charlie and I looked at each other. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I heard it. Then the whisper came again. Emma, come down. She stepped back, her face pale, and that's when Tyler screamed. He clutched his head and fell to the ground, yelling like something was inside his brain. His eyes rolled back, foam at his mouth. We grabbed him, tried to hold him down, and then he just stopped. Dead, still. He opened his eyes slowly, but they weren't his eyes anymore. They were black, pitch black. He stood up, completely calm now, and looked right at Emma. It wants you. We ran. We didn't look back. We didn't stop. Branches tore at our clothes. Our lungs burned. But we didn't stop until we got back to the main field. Tyler didn't follow. We told Mr. Kessler what happened. He looked confused at first, then scared. He told us to wait by the bus and went off to find Tyler. He came back 30 minutes later, alone. Couldn't find him. He said quietly, "Let's go." The whole ride back, nobody said a word. That night, I had a nightmare. I was back at the well. Only this time, I was looking down into it, and something was climbing up. A shape. A figure. Its face was covered in dirt. Its hands were thin and clawed. I woke up screaming. I called Charlie the next day. He had the same dream, so did Emma. We went back to school on Monday, but everything was different. Mr. Kessler didn't come back. A substitute said he took sudden leave. Tyler was reported missing. His parents and the police questioned us. We told them he wandered off. We didn't tell them about the well, about the voice, about the black eyes. No one would believe it anyway. Emma moved away 2 weeks later. Her parents said they needed a fresh start. I think they knew something wasn't right with her. She wasn't the same. She stopped speaking, just stared at walls, drew circles in her notebooks over and over. As for me and Charlie, we made a promise never to talk about it again. But sometimes we check the news. Sometimes we see things, like hikers going missing near Raven's Hollow, or strange photos with shadows where they shouldn't be. And every once in a while, when I'm alone, I still hear it. That voice. Soft. Cold. Calling my name, like the well never let go of me. Like it's still waiting. And that's why I'll never go back to Raven's Hollow. Not ever. Because I don't think we found something that day. I think it found us. This is the story of a field trip that started off just like any other, but ended up being a nightmare none of us would ever forget. It happened when I was in my senior year of high school. We were supposed to have a great time, enjoy the outdoors, learn a little history, maybe make a few memories. Instead, we walked into something much darker than any of us could have imagined. It all started with a letter from our teacher, Mrs. Brooks. She was the kind of teacher who always encouraged us to go beyond the textbook, to explore new places. When she announced that we would be going on a trip to Greystone Manor, an old mansion about an hour from our town, no one really thought much of it. It seemed like a typical field trip to us. Tour the house, learn a bit about its history, have lunch and head back. But Greystone Manor wasn't just any old mansion. It was known for being different. The place had a reputation. People said it was haunted. We'd all heard the rumors. Strange noises, flickering lights, the ghost of a woman who supposedly wandered the halls. But those were just stories, right? Things we dismissed because, well, we were teenagers. Ghosts didn't scare us. On the day of the trip, the air was cool and crisp, perfect for a day out. We piled into the bus with our classmates, all of us, joking around and chatting as we drove toward the manor. I was with my friends, Alex, Sarah, and Ben. We were all pretty excited. It was the kind of trip where you had more fun just being with friends than actually paying attention to the history lesson. When we arrived, Greystone Manor looked like something out of a horror movie. The building was huge, looming over the grounds with ivy crawling up the sides of its stone walls. There was an old rusted iron gate at the entrance, and the windows were dark, giving the house an eerie, almost empty feel. Our tour guide, a man named Mr. Hawthorne, greeted us as we stepped off the bus. He was a tall, thin man with glasses and a stiff posture. He didn't look particularly friendly, but we figured that was just how tour guides were. He led us inside the house, and the air inside felt different. It wasn't just cold, it was damp, heavy, like the house had been closed off for years. The walls were lined with old portraits, and the floors creaked under our feet. But the strangest part was the silence. Even with all of us talking and laughing, there was something about the place that made every sound feel muffled, like the house didn't want us there. As Mr. Hawthorne showed us around, he told us about the history of Greystone Manor. It had been built in the 1800s by a wealthy family, but the last owner, a woman named Eleanor Greystone, had disappeared under mysterious circumstances over 50 years ago. They said she had been a recluse and that her family had kept to themselves. The manor had been empty for years, and many people believed that Eleanor's spirit still haunted the halls. We didn't take much of that seriously. We laughed it off as part of the tour experience, a spooky story to make things more interesting. But as we wandered through the dark hallways, something started to feel off. I noticed that some of the windows were sealed shut, the curtains pulled tight, blocking out the light. There were strange markings on the walls, symbols that didn't seem to belong to the mansion's time period. We moved through the rooms, each one more unsettling than the last. There was one room with a giant old-fashioned mirror on the wall. As I looked into it, I swear I saw something move behind me. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. I chalked it up to nerves and kept moving, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The tour ended in the basement, which had been turned into a small museum. There were old artifacts from the Greystone family, and I thought it was interesting at first, but the place was so dark and cold it felt like we were standing in a tomb. That's when we heard it. At first it was just a faint sound, something like a whispering. It came from somewhere behind us, from deeper in the basement. I thought it was someone from our group playing a prank, but when I turned around, everyone was looking just as confused as I was. Did anyone else hear that? Sarah asked, her voice shaking. Before anyone could respond, the whispering grew louder. It was clearer now, and it sounded like someone was calling out, "No," begging for help. Help. Me. I felt a chill run down my spine. I wasn't the only one. Alex grabbed my arm and Ben's face had gone white. We all stood frozen, staring into the darkness at the far end of the basement. Mr. Hawthorne didn't seem to notice. He was too busy explaining some old relic to another group. I wanted to tell him, to ask if he heard the voice, but I couldn't move. It was like the air had thickened around us, pressing in. The whispering grew louder. It was clear now. "Help me. Help me." Then the lights flickered. For a split second, the basement was plunged into darkness, and when the lights came back on, we saw her. A woman. She was standing at the far end of the basement, right by the staircase. She was wearing a white dress, her long hair hanging over her face. Her arms were outstretched and her eyes were wide open, staring at us in a way that made my heart stop. She looked like she had been there for years, trapped in that same spot, waiting for someone to notice her. And then, just as quickly as she appeared, she vanished. We all screamed and rushed toward the stairs. Mr. Hawthorne finally turned around, his face pale. He looked down at us, his eyes wide with fear. "You need to leave," he said, his voice low and shaky. "Now." He led us up the stairs. His steps hurried, and we didn't stop until we were all outside in the fresh air. The bus ride home was silent. No one spoke. We were all too shaken to even look at each other. Mrs. Brooks asked if we had fun, but none of us could answer. That night when I got home, I couldn't shake the image of the woman. Her eyes, her desperate cry for help. It haunted me. It still does even now. And I can't help but wonder, what happened to Eleanor Greystone? Was she really trapped in that house? Or was there something more to it? I haven't gone back to Greystone Manor since that day, and I don't think I ever will. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I still hear that whisper. Help me. It's a sound I'll never forget. And if you ever find yourself near Greystone Manor, just remember, some places are better left undisturbed. Some stories are better left untold, because once you hear them, they don't let you go.